Hello. Hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello from my heart to yours. We've all heard about dragons, the myths, the folklores. Um, we we know that dragons are like a type of a reptile, um, and there's lots of countries that have myths about dragons. Well, I want to talk about Ireland. So Ireland is a place where the Celtic myths and legends were very rich. There was a mighty dragon that was in Ireland. And they were like the serpents and stuff. They were reptiles. And they had gotten banned when St. Patrick banished the serpents from Ireland. Okay, so but there was one who was overlooked, perhaps because he slumbered or was abroad himself, and that one was called Ligna Paist, or the last great reptile. And soon after St. Patrick passed away, he made his presence known, this reptile did, as he was known of the ode to the people of Owenry. A giant serpent he was. He could spit fire and venom in equal measure. He was as tall as two men standing on top the other at the shoulder, with mighty curling ram horns, an ancient remnant of the beginning of the world. He was long enough to curl around a green hill in the dark valley near Owenry River and hold his tail in his mouth. Black was his tongue and sharp his fangs, and his armored scales were impenetrable plates larger than a man's head. So he was as tall as two men standing on top of another. So if you had two men who were 6 feet, he'd be 12 feet. If you had two men who were 10 feet, he'd be 20 feet tall. So he doesn't really sound like that tall of a dragon, but he certainly sounds like one of the giant reptiles, the reptilians of old. Do you know the ones they speak of in the myths and stuff? Like the Nephilim and stuff, and the other types of giants, and how the serpent men, and some of them had like human bodies, but yet reptilian heads. And then you hear about the Indian gods. They had like serpent bodies with human heads, somewhere around that line. So it says that no warrior could defeat him, as he began a reign of terror from the slopes of the Spirins to the shores of La Foule, burning crops, cattle, and people before devouring them in hunger and vengeance for his banished kin, because he was very upset that they got rid of the rest of the serpents, the rest of the dragons that were there in Ireland. So he wasn't very happy. I'm sure he was very lonely too. The people of the area were at a loss as to what to do. So at last they turned to a holy man of the new faith, St. Merle O'Haney, who had built a church in Banagher, whose ruins can still be seen today. St. Merle heard their cries and fasted for 9 days and 9 nights, as the way of the Christian about to face a mighty enemy, and while praying he saw a vision of how he might defeat the dragon. The dragon doesn't have a clue. He brought 3 long reed rods with him and came to the dragon's pool, where the beast curled up between raids and called out. Well, Paiste raised his fearsome head, all dripping with pondweed and mud, and laughed aloud, for he thought the locals had sent him a sacrifice, as his kind had come to expect in the days of the pagans. The dragon mocked him, and made as if to draw closer. But Saint Maur kept his cool, and asked the dragon if he could perform an ancient ritual of his clan. Greatly amused at his human folly, the dragon decided he would lay down, and he allowed the saint to lay the rods across his back. So we have this dragon that has like a snake-like body, and he's around probably 20 feet. And he's going to lay down and let this saint lay these reeds across his body, on his back. So just as Paiste began to tire of this game and announced it was time for dinner, Saint Maur asked for just a little longer so he could pray to complete the ritual. So with that, he went to his knees and he prayed to the God, the Father Almighty, with great passion and faith, to turn the reeds to unbreakable steel, making the sign of the cross, and so it was done. So the saint is on his knees and he's praying, Lord, please, God, Father Almighty, please turn these into steel. Yeah, he was praying. Please turn them unbreakable steel in the sign of a cross. So the reeds wound themselves around the dragon, and they tightened. And no matter how much he thrashed and howled, shaking the earth for miles around, he could not escape. And the more he fought, the tighter his bounds got. So he's got this steel thing wrapped around his body in the shape of a cross. And every time he moves and wiggles, it gets tighter and tighter, and he can't get loose. He can't. Finally, the dragon got tired, and he groaned, and he complained that he had been tricked. But the saint would not let him go, for he knew that the dragon was a malevolent beast, with no honesty at all in his heart. He knew that the truth was not in him, and he knew that the dragon was lying. The dragon may say all kinds of things, say that he will do this and he'll do that if he'd just let him free, but he knew he would not keep his word. So again the dragon protested, saying that no human could have authority over him. But Saint Maur explained that Paiste was a living creature created by God, the Father God Almighty, and so was subject to God's commands. Well, he didn't like that. Then the saint declared that his punishment was to be cast into the ocean, into the water of La Foyle. But before he did so, Paiste begged one last favor, that he might be allowed to look upon the Seanet, that is, the stretch of land from Banagher and the Spearins to the shores of La Foyle, from his watery tomb. This much mercy, but no more, did Saint Maur allow, and into the deeps the dragon went until judgment. To this very day, people in the area say they feel fear when they cross certain parts of the La Foyle, and the odd tides and disturbances in the water's current really do defy explanation. They don't know why the tides are the way they are and the water currents move the way that they move. When the river Owenray floods, they say it's due to the dragon struggling with its bindings. Isn't that interesting? The dragons, the serpents, were banned by St. Patrick from Ireland. And this one was the last of its kind, a great reptile, reptilian probably, but had the body of a snake. And they say it's just a myth, but is it? I don't think it's a myth. I don't. I think it was quite real. But as time went by, as time went on, it turned into a myth, turned into a legend. It turned into folklore. That's what happens. It's like, it's really strange, you all. Everything that, all these myths and legends and folklores that are out there, and people have totally dismissed them as having any truth at all. I think they were true. I think there were dragons. I think there were giant serpents. I think there were serpent men, a race of serpent beings. And really, the Hive fits right into it. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this, because I love learning about this. I hope you love learning too if you haven't heard the story, because it's very, very interesting. Have a wonderful rest of your day.